what the heck is the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District and why is it on my bill here? And we get questions like that at the office all the time. So um, one of the things we built was Lake Pueblo. It wasn't always there. It was finished in 1975. So um, I always like to lead off the presentation with that. Uh, and then we'll get into, I'm going to go through some of the history of how the district developed, if that's all right, and then tell you all the things we do by the end of this presentation. So on the project history, there were a lot of big events in the valley that kind of, I took this off another publication, so there's a little surfer on it. I'm sorry. Um, but the there was a flood in Pueblo in 1921 that you probably have heard about. And that was followed in the 30s by a drought. And so there was obviously a need to control the water in the valley that kind of got people thinking about this project in the first place. And it came to light in the late 1920s. Um, by the time World War II ended in 1946, a new group had formed called the Water Development Association of Southeastern Colorado. And that group was concerned a lot of the towns down in the um, Arkansas Valley had really poor quality water. The Arkansas River is an intermittent river, meaning that sometimes it can practically dry up and there'll be no water available whatsoever. So wells were starting to be developed, and the quality of water was brackish, and people enjoy the way it tasted, and they didn't like it down in the valley. So that was one thing that drove it. The other was um, just having enough water to provide the cities and to provide the farms with water. So the collection of people who formed the district was very, very interesting. It was um, chambers of commerce all up and down the Arkansas Valley, clear from Leadville down to Lamar at one time. Even places like Walsenburg and Trinidad were looking at this project. It was a much larger project originally called the Gunnison, Arkansas. That ran into a lot of political flack. So the project was simplified during the 1950s to just being the Frying Pan Arkansas project. And I'll tell you why it's called that in a minute. I don't want to get ahead of myself there. The district that Justin and I work for is called the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District. It was formed in 1958 by acts of city councils up and down the valley, just resolutions and that sort of thing. In the agricultural areas, all of the people in a ditch company would have to petition to join the district. So our district boundaries, you probably noticed uh, on the slide that announced this presentation, how it's shaped, and the reason it's shaped so weirdly among all those counties, which we'll get into in a minute, is because you had to ask to be in the district. So the reason that it is on your tax bills is because all of these people decided to tax themselves 65 years ago in 67 years ago now in southeastern Colorado so that we could bring more water over and control some of the water. So it's a multi-purpose project. We control flooding, we provide water during dry times, um, we provide municipal water, and we provide agricultural water. So these are some of the red letter dates in there. We actually built a power plant at Pueblo Dam as a district. That was not a reclamation project, but our district's project in 2019. And in this year, 2023, we actually started construction of the Arkansas Valley Conduit. I noticed somebody at this meeting is from Colorado Springs, and some of the water that you drink comes up through the Fountain Valley conduit. That was completed in 1985. And this is probably all very confusing to you right now, but now we're going to break it down into a little more a little more detail. Any questions so far?
This is really interesting, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is a map of Colorado in a way that you're probably not used to seeing it. This shows the river, the watersheds throughout the state. And you can see the size of the Arkansas River Basin. It's actually considered the largest one in the state. The South Platte might look better, but if you see this, can you see my cursor?
Mhm.
This area here
Yes.
is the Republican River Basin. And the interesting thing about Colorado is that all of the water flows out of the state. And I think we're like the only state where it does that. Um, and no water ever flows into the state from anywhere else except for this little bit up here, right there, Dinosaur National Monument, where the Green River dips into the state and then goes back into Utah. But mainly the whole state is divided into these river basins. And the Arkansas is this one here, which I covered in snow for some reason. And you can see a lot of these reservoirs here. Most all of them out on the plains are man-made reservoirs that were dug by irrigation companies in the probably in the early 1900s, late 1800s was the time when agriculture was really taking off, and they wanted to store water so that they would have it available, and that's what almost all of these were built for here. Um, Up in the higher mountains, you had Turquoise and Twin Lakes, but they were very small at the time, and both were enlarged prior to and during the Frying Pan Arkansas project. So, and then the other feature on this map is, of course, the major cities that are in it, and a lot of the minor ones that are in the Arkansas Valley. So we're going to take a look here, and I promised you I would tell you how the district's boundaries were formed. So these are the counties that are in the district, and they go from Chaffee County down to Prowers County and Kiowa County here. But not all of every county is in the district. It's only this area that's in brown that is in our district here. And you can see that mill levy that we collect, because this area has grown so much in El Paso County, about 75% of our revenue comes from El Paso County. The other counties here all contribute, and everybody pays the same rate. We'll talk a little bit more about how we get the water and where that water goes to in the next few slides. So, any questions so far?
Chris, I'm just curious why the headwaters, Leadville, that's not technically not part of your water conservancy district.
Correct. And we do have facilities up there. In fact, most of our facilities on the eastern slope are centered up there. That's where we bring the water in and all that. Leadville had the opportunity to join the district. At the time the district was formed, the Climax Molybdenum Company was in Lake County and kind of controlled the county. They controlled the schools, local government, almost everything about the county it was a company town, Leadville, at that time. And they chose not to join the district at the time. So that's a very good question. As I said, everybody who is in the district petitioned in, and then you can see I'm pointing with my finger, which is pretty stupid here. Okay. So you can see up here in Chaffee County, there's some farmland that's in there. A little
Absolutely.
bit in Fremont County too. There's no farmland up here, and Leadville, as I said, was company town that did not want to join the district at that point. So, and you notice also there's parts of the watershed that are not in counties and parts of, um, when we have our basin roundtables, which is another group that formed, but they formed with all the counties that are in the watershed. So this is part of Park County up here. This is actually part of Saguache County over here. So not all of the basin is contained within the um, within the boundaries of the district. As I said, it's very tightly drawn just to the people that benefit from the water or that will benefit from the water. We have the little town of Eads is right over here in Kiowa County, and they actually, until we get the Arkansas Valley conduit built, they've never had any benefit from the project at all so far. But they paid all their taxes all those years, and they're waiting for us to get there with the conduit. So, but yeah, and as I said, we had in that Water Development Association, there were representatives from Trinidad, Walsenburg that were in there. I don't remember if there's any from Custer County, but it was it was originally seen as a basin-wide project, and then it became much more focused as the years went by. Um, so this is a group of old gentlemen. I knew some of these people because I'm that old. And they that worked in the 1950s. They frequently went back to Washington to lobby Congress um, to build the Frying Pan Arkansas project. And one of the interesting things I have on my desk, I keep a couple of historical references, is they have all of the congressional testimony that was made during that time to form the district. So as you see on this map, that again are the district boundaries and what became of that. The project was always supposed to include pipelines that went to El Paso County, this area up here, and the Arkansas Valley conduit to serve the cities of the lower Arkansas Valley. One question you might also have is why Grenada and Holly Grenada and Holly are out here in Prowers County, and they chose not to join the district at the time. And that was, they could have been part of the Arkansas Valley conduit at that time. We've had questions from them since that time saying, oh, well, could we get on the conduit? And we have to tell them, no, it's a federal project and you have to be in the district to benefit from it. So that little tax on your bill has been paid all these 67 years or so that we could get things done, and when people join the district it gets kind of expensive. Back in 1968, in the city of Lamar was not originally in the district, so 10 years after the district formed, they had to pay all the back taxes for those 10 years in order to join. Another one that joined was Pueblo West over here, and their their conditions for joining were that they could benefit from the project, but they could not get project water initially. Um, since that time, the rules have changed a little bit and they do get some project water, but they joined on as never as a full-fledged member of the district, but elected to get into it and tax themselves so that they could get some of the benefits, which is mainly the storage of water in Pueblo Reservoir. So that's kind of the fundamentals of the district. There's a lot more to it, but I don't have enough time to tell you all that tonight. So we'll go on unless you have any other questions about how the district formed. So the result of going to Washington all those years paid off in 1962. The Frying Pan, Arkansas project was signed into law by President Kennedy. Um, and this is a question that you asked on the headline of this presentation is what's the property tax all about? Well, there's 0.9 mils. Um, and this presentation was actually part of an ABC one, so all 6 counties in ABC are actually in the district. It generated about 10.2 million in 2024. And you'll notice if you look at your tax bill this year, you'll see that it's a reduced amount, more like 0.712 or something like that. It's a smaller amount because of Tabor. We have to reduce that property tax that we do. So what does the district do? We own the water rights to the Frying Pan, Arkansas project. We manage the water resources. That is to say, there's project water in there. The Bureau of Reclamation builds it over, brings it over, and operates the reservoir. But how that water is used is managed by the Southeast District. We pay 56% of operating maintenance and replacement costs for the project. The reason it's 56% and not 100% is because there are also what the federal government calls other uses for the project. So, for instance, recreation, fish and wildlife flows, flood control are all other, and power generation. Those are all other benefits that we don't pay 100% of the cost. Those benefits are also part of the project there. And we repay the debt for building the project, which will be paid off in 2031, 50 years after the final debt was settled in 1981. And then we also hold a reserve fund for big things that are coming up in the future, like a dam failure, catastrophic events, or improvements that need to be made to the project. So that's kind of the purposes of the district. And now we'll get into what the project itself actually does. As I mentioned before, some reservoirs were built or enlarged for the Frying Pan, Arkansas project. On the west slope, we Rudai Reservoir with a capacity of 100,000 acre feet. Is everyone clear what an acre foot is? Or do you need me to explain what an acre foot is?
I think it's the amount of water that would cover an acre of land 1 foot deep.
Correct. All right, good.
Okay.
So we have some water knowledge in the audience. That's good. Um, so if you think about an acre, well, I used to own an acre of property, so I know pretty much what an acre is, but if if you need to visualize it, it's about the size of a football field. So we have all of that water, the capacity to store all that water in all these reservoirs. So Rudai Reservoir was built on the west slope for compensatory storage, meaning that there was a little controversy about the project when it was built because we were taking water from one area of the state and moving it to another. And that always is going to generate a certain amount of controversy. So there had to be trade-offs and benefits. And one of the things that the Frying Pan Arkansas project did was assure that there would be stream flows in any water we took. So when we talk about the collection system, I'll explain that a little bit more. But the big benefit was this reservoir, Rudai Reservoir. In 2018, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the district, and we were lucky enough to have a nice friendly afternoon with the Aspen Yacht Club, and which isn't really as fancy as it sounds. They're just people who like to go out on the lake in sailboats, and they're very appreciative that we built this nice reservoir near their community. So Rudai is one of the most beautiful one. You'll see a picture of it in a minute. Also Turquoise Lake. Turquoise Lake was formerly called Sugarloaf Reservoir. It was owned by CF&I, the steel mill. It was 17,000 acre feet. It was enlarged to 129,000 acre feet with the project. The Mount Elbert forebay is part of a pump back hydroelectric plant, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it's built to hold water that comes down from Turquoise Lake before it goes into Twin Lake. Then it runs through a penstock and powers we have a big power plant down there. And the largest reservoir is the Pueblo Reservoir, which is kind of like the terminal storage for the project and also provides flood control for Pueblo and the lower Arkansas Valley. There's some infrastructure involved. Our main infrastructure is the Arkansas River, which carries the water for 100 some miles from Leadville to Pueblo. But we have all these tunnels too. We have about 14 miles of tunnels on the south side collection, 11 on the north side, Boosted tunnels, 5. Those numbers won't mean anything to you till I show you what those things are, but there's a lot of infrastructure too. And then the Fountain Valley Conduit, which goes up to El Paso County, is about 45 miles long. We have the Mount Elbert Power Plant, which is a 200 megawatt. There is a Pueblo Fish Hatchery was built as part of the project. The project also provides water to the Leadville, excuse me, to the Leadville Fish Hatchery. And then there's 2 municipal outlets at Pueblo Dam that provide water. The south outlet serves Pueblo West, the Fountain Valley Pipeline, and the north outlet was expanded when they built Southern Delivery System. So now we're going to dig into the Frying Pan Arkansas project. And I was talking about the collection system, and this kind of shows you where we collect water from. We have a north side up here. Really, it's very interesting to tour this and see it if you get the opportunity. Sometime you should. There's a place called the Granite Siphon, which is right around here. And in that one, it takes water clear across the valley through a siphon that's about 200 feet higher on the end where the water comes from, and then takes it down to the other side and dumps it into the tunnels, and it goes up here to a point where you get to the Boosted Tunnel. and it takes it over into Turquoise Reservoir. So we have a little animated thing here where all this kind of gives you the close up. So the siphon I was talking about is right here, the granite diversion. It takes water off of a kind of a plateau up here across a very steep valley, and the water goes down and then it comes back up. And it's amazing how it works and fascinating to think how it must have been to build something like that. As I said, Rudai Reservoir is probably the most picturesque one that we have. That red soil that's around there is very evident here. And it down at the base of it, there's the best fishing hole on the western slope. It's waters, tailwaters from dams often are like, the fish just love it. So anyway, so then I talked about the collection system, and this is what it does. All the water comes up. We've automated most of it with these. I forget what they're called, but anyway, they like control gates that bring the water through the tunnels. So with those in place, it actually makes it our collection of the water more reliable, because people don't have to get up there in the snow to open the gates, and that was always kind of the problem why we couldn't bring as much water as we should have over. The Boosted Tunnel, you can see the east portal of it here, is where we bring the water over into Turquoise Reservoir. So this is at the far end of Turquoise Reservoir, and dumps it in. There's some other tunnels up there too. Homestake Tunnel it serves Aurora and Colorado Springs. It comes over through this area here. And there's a smaller one, the Busk Ivanhoe Tunnel, which is owned by Aurora and Pueblo, brings water in just below the Boosted Tunnel here. So this is Turquoise Reservoir. That's where the water initially comes into when it comes over from the western slope. And I talked a little bit about the Mount Albert power plant. This is a 200 megawatt power plant, and it's a pump back facility, meaning you could run the generators in reverse to pump the water back up to the forebay, which is about 400 feet above Mount Albert. So it's a big operation, and it's running into some maintenance issues. Now we lost both units last year, and I think we're getting one back online this spring. So, and the other one will be out for a couple years. It had a big crack in it, and the units themselves are about the size of a 10-story building, so they're huge. Inside the plant, it's another wonder that they could build something like this, to me. So Mount Albert, this is the forebay up here, and this is Twin Lakes. And so the water comes from the forebay down into the power plant and comes into Twin Lakes. And from there, it's released into the Arkansas River and brought down to Pueblo. Any questions about the project? Okay, so moving on, well, what do we do with the water after we get it here? Well, this is a complicated little graphic. Kind of looks at the allocation principles and how the water is theoretically divided. Um, we have certain amounts that go to each area, east, west, north of Pueblo, and then to Pueblo itself. And then we have what we, what this this awkward acronym means, not non irrigation something water. Anyway, this is water from farmlands that have been dried up and is redistributed, which is the way that Pueblo West came to get an allocation. Our average imports are about 61,000 acre feet. Our average allocations are 47,000 acre feet. And the reason the allocations don't match the imports is we have to take deductions for evaporation, transit loss when it comes down to the reservoir, and then there's a technicality where we have to provide 3,000 feet to Twin Lakes Company so that they can meet their environmental obligations on the western slope. So we take all those deductions out, and it varies from, if we only brought half as much water over, we probably would not have half as much in allocations. It would be less than that because of the way the deductions work. But that's a complicated formula that our water resources department deals with. So if we brought over a lot more water, say we brought over 80,000, we would probably get closer to 60,000 feet in allocation. So it varies from year to year. As you know, the snowpack varies, rainfall varies, so you can't depend on an amount. And there's a saying that people in the water business have, is that there's no such thing as an average year because everyone's different.
So, Chris, I'm curious, just thinking about this from the Native Plant Society's perspective about folks living in Springs, Pueblo West, Pueblo, Southeast Colorado, that municipal chunk, which is like half of the water. Do you know how much of that water is spent on home landscapes and golf courses and stuff like that?
Well, no, we don't. We have an idea. We do a conservation plan, so I'm familiar with all of the conservation plans um of all the cities. To put it in perspective, we're a supplemental source of water. So if you looked at Colorado Springs utilities, we are about 4% of their total water supply. If you look at uh, Pueblo's water, Pueblo gets a lot of storage from, but Pueblo has such good water rights that it rarely needs the frying pan Arkansas water. Um, some of the communities east of Pueblo that are dependent on groundwater will take 100% project water once we complete the Arkansas Valley conduit because it'll be such better quality than what they're getting. So it's kind of a mix of things, and each municipality has a different mix as far as what goes into your household uses and your outside irrigation uses. Uh, Pueblo probably because it has such good water rights probably has the highest outdoor use of any um, communities, along the Arkansas River, just because of the availability of water. Uh,
No, that's really helpful to understand though, Chris, that your water conservancy district, it's not on you to necessarily have a plan for conserving water. It's more on each municipality. Did I understand that properly?
Yeah, that that works that's how it works out because we can't really go in and we can say we don't want to see the waste of water. We want to see water used in a responsible manner and we're actually um that's kind of one of the things in building the Arkansas Valley conduit. Some of those systems down there leak so badly that we are asking them to improve their systems before they take our water in. We can't be providing water to a town that loses 50% because of leaks in their system, which we have some down there that do. Um, our with Colorado Springs, they're in a different kind of mode that all of the Fountain Valley Authority, um, the city which is Colorado Springs, the city of Fountain, Whitefield Security, um, they have already gone to water rationing pricing and conservation strategies that reduce the amount of outdoor watering. Pueblo West, of course, is very restricted in what it can do in terms of outdoor watering, just because there's not a available water supply. Um, and then you get out on like St. Charles Mesa, it's a mix of agriculture and domestic uses. So um, they have a good water supply, and also many of the people who are using that water supply domestically also have ties to agriculture. So different different strategies in different parts of the valley. I'd say you don't. It's not a one size fits all project. So in practice, this is what we how we divide the water up. We say 51% goes to municipal, and of that, this is what each area gets. This much will go into the AVC out of this 3.59% down here. And these are the other areas that get water from that. In practice, that doesn't always happen. And these are court ordered allocation principles. So we don't have a lot of leeway in how that's managed, so that but in practice we do. So this whole bucket can get filled up if, say, Fountain Valley only needed 10% of the water that year. The rest would be available if west of Pueblo needed more, or if east of Pueblo needed more. And that would always be the first bite out of the allocation. Same with this. These are all municipal uses over here. And then whatever's left actually is what goes to agriculture. So in a very dry year, you might see 70% of the water actually going to municipal uses. But because it says no less than these percents. So in practice, that hadn't happened yet. We have over since 1972, when we first started allocating water, 72%'s gone to agriculture and 28%'s gone to municipalities. The true value of the project for municipalities so far has been the storage, because you can store the water in dry years, so in wet years, so it's available in dry years. So that has always been kind of a surprising fact to me, that that even though the allocation principles say this is where the water should go, in practice it rarely works out like that. Any more questions about that? I know that's kind of a lot to wrap your head around, right? But- okay. So as a result of the project being built, there's been many other benefits to the project. One is excess capacity storage. What that means is we have space in Pueblo Reservoir usually to store more water than just the project water that we brought over. And so we have contracts with mainly municipal users. There's sometimes agricultural users will get a temporary contract, but we have long-term contracts with municipalities to store their water in there. For a community like Pueblo that has the Pueblo Board of Waterworks has a lot of their own water rights, and the reservoir actually gives them a place to store those that becomes one of the main values of the project. It's also kind of like a good reserve for the communities to the north and in El Paso County can store water in there to for when conditions get dry. That became much more critical in 2002 when we had that severe drought. And so that when we had the same type of drought in 2012, the impact wasn't as great because there was already a lot of water being stored in Pueblo Reservoir year after year. That also helps the recreation at Pueblo Reservoir. As I mentioned, we're always supplemental water, whether it's municipal or irrigation. Uh, as I mentioned, 4% of Colorado Springs water supply, for instance, would be project water. In a ditch company, you're probably looking at pretty near that same ratio, somewhere between 6 and 8% of a ditch company's water would be project water. That may not sound like a lot, but because we can store it, it could be enough to finish a crop if you had a dry fall, or to get a crop started if you had a dry spring. So it works on both shoulders of the hydrologic cycle. You can use the water to, in times when it's dry, and it can make the difference between whether you have a crop or not. There's also some recreation benefits, of course. When they did the project, they thought of flat water recreation, but the effect on the Arkansas River between Leadville and Pueblo has been amazing, because you have a voluntary flow management program that is operated in such a way that we have a gold medal fishery on this 100-mile stretch of river between the two. And we also have the most heavily rafted, one of the most heavily rafted rivers in the United States. I think it is usually referred to as the most heavily rafted. A lot of commercial companies, you probably run into those over the summer. Our voluntary flow management program, we keep the flows up for rafting from the beginning of July, when runoff ends, to mid-August. But the part that a lot of people don't see about that program is it kind of levelizes the flows throughout the year for the fish as well. So it's a great environmental program. Water quality has improved since the development of the Fry Arc project. We have, we fund several measuring stations and stations that also will measure things like temperature and that sort of thing of water. So that is a big benefit of the project. And those are all funded by the district stakeholders. And I think that one that we don't think about until it rains is flood control, and we provide a lot of that. So, and that is my explanation of the Frying Pan, Arkansas project and the district, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I want my
That's
people
great,
getting hurt.
Chris. Would you be willing to open up the table also to Justin and to talk about your demonstration garden, which is spectacular, by the way?
Yeah, Yeah.
Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, the district also runs a demonstration garden at the headquarter offices to try to teach people and show people how you can garden with less water, what plants to use, how to landscape for it, and kind of plan it. And a big part of that is using native plants. They're made for how much rain we get naturally. So I usually lean towards that. In the garden, we also do have some plant selections, which are sometimes a little bit more exotic. But I mean, whatever you want to do, we're trying to just give people options to conserve water and yeah, it's the native plants are kind of where I like to lean on, because I don't think enough nurseries and just gardening information really, especially in the Southeast Colorado area. It's just a lot of the plants are hard to find. So bringing people into it and trying to get nurseries to get on board and just make these plants more available is kind of what I'm trying to do.
That's great,
Um,
Justin. Um, uh, do you, are there materials on the Water Conservancy District's website that kind of show some of the plants that people might be able to come and see at your demonstration garden?
Yeah, here I'll share my screen.
Awesome.
All right, you can see that now, the website.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. If you go to the website, it's secwcd.org, and then under the water management tab, there's water-wise gardening, and I've tried to put some information on here. A lot of it's kind of informative. We have all of our garden brochures in PDF. Um, you can kind of go over. Those are also available on site. My contact information's on there. So if you do have any questions that you don't think of, you can email me and I'll get back to you. Yeah, we go through the 7 principles of xeriscaping on here. Planning, design, soil improvements, turf alternatives, efficient irrigation, using like things like drip irrigation, if needed. Plant zones, which is a big part of planning a garden out for natives and stuff, where you can still have plants that need supplemental irrigation. If you put them closer to the house where it's easier to water them, and then as you get further out into the property, you put lower and lower water use plants. So a lot of that stuff's on your white mulches to use. With natives, I mean, you're probably going to be using gravel or none. And maintenance. A lot of people think that xeriscaping and this kind of gardening doesn't require a lot of maintenance, but there is some. I mean, there's always going to be some. And then we do focus a lot on turf replacement where because grass does use up a lot of water. It's like the number one user in gardens. It's not the kind of turf that people want usually. It just isn't how grass grows here. We are on a grassland, but it's a lot of bunch grasses and um just if people are going to use grasses, we recommend using a buffalo grass and blue grama mix, which it can get by on very low water or none if you're okay with it going yellow in the middle of summer. Um, but yeah,
Justin, I'm so sorry
yeah,
to interrupt, but my
go on.
memory is that you've got like three or more sort of test turf beds, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Those are a little unkempt. They've seen better days. But yeah, they do. There is a test plot that has kind of a special irrigation system on it that waters the different kind of turfs for different amounts of time. Like one will get 10 or 15 minutes a day, one will get 7 minutes a day, and one will get like 3 or 4 minutes a day. Or it's not daily, it's a couple times a week. But it's just to show which grasses do better with less water. And there's stuff in there like bluegrass and fescues and kind of more traditional grasses. Um, but I do usually lean on trying to get people to do the buffalo grass and blue grama mix. The if you look at the screen, the grass that's on our field there is a buffalo grass lawn, and it was hydro seeded. But I've had luck at my home just seeding, broadcast seeding, um, or you can get plugs. I know sod is sometimes available, but it seems to be kind of hard to get a hold of right now in our area. Um, but yeah, um, I don't know if I have a picture of the actual. I go over how you can get rid of grass, whether it be renting a piece of machinery, digging it out yourself, using sheet mulches, um, or using like glyphosate, which is more for like really large areas. Um, but yeah, we're just trying to teach people like you can still have a lawn, but you can choose a a more water conscious type of grass and then maybe make your garden beds bigger because they help the pollinators and um, just kind of our natural environment. So in Colorado, we get kind of varying degrees of amounts of water, and that determines what your native plants are going to require. So Pueblo, most of the southeast Colorado, we're at about, it says under 10. I think on the low end it's like 8 inches. So like 8 to 15 or 20 inches in this area. As you go up into the mountains, you get closer into the 20s, and the San Juans get a lot more water than we do. So that determines which kind of plants when you're looking at native plants for your garden. But yeah, for irrigation, there is a lot. I know Chris mentioned the evaporation. So same applies with irrigating a lawn or a garden, and you get a lot of wind will blow a lot of your sprinkler driven water away, and due to our dry climate, the soils will dry out very fast. So
No, so I see that you've got some rainwater harvesting resources there too, Justin. Very
we do.
cool. Now that it's not a crime.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you don't do too much, two barrels. I wish you could do more, but it's a good start.
I think that there's some legislation to do that this year, I think, as,
I'll have to keep an eye on that
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, because I have one at my house, a barrel just like this, and I use it to supplement during droughts. We don't have one at the Water Conservancy because I believe it's residential only. You can't do it commercially. But I do have on one of the brochures we have kind of goes over how to build one of these. The barrels are real easy to get a hold of used. There's usually someone on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace selling them real cheap, and then the extra hardware you need is pretty easy to come by. But then on the at the garden, I don't, do we have no. I don't know if we have a picture on the website of we have a rain garden at the demonstration garden that uses our carport garage. The roof has gutters on it that then divert into a rain garden. So there's some more mesic high water use plants they use that, and they don't really get any supplemental watering besides the extra rainwater. So that's an option too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can kind of use direct the flow of water out of your rain gutters and kind of grow plants that might only grow in the mountains or in the foothills that we don't have enough water for. That's a good way to do that without having to use city water. But then if you are using city water, it's best to use like drip irrigation, subsurface drip irrigation. That it can prevent a lot of the evaporation and just give the amount of water that the plants need and no more. So that's really a good way to conserve water while doing natives. Since I've been working at the garden, I've been trying to do more very low water plants, stuff that you might find out on the plains. So a lot of stuff that's harder to come by because nurseries don't usually carry a lot of that stuff. But I've been trying to collect seed and get some of those plants going at the Conservancy.
Yay.
That's really
Yeah.
exciting,
And this is
Justin.
at the place.
What was that?
It's
The-
the place over by the airport.
Yeah,
yes?
and you're collecting seeds. Can you tell us more about that? Because the Colorado Native Plant Society is all about collecting the seed.
I'm very
Yeah.
excited about what is working.
Yeah, we did use some of the was it there's the other society North American Rock Garden Society. I used their seed exchange to kind of get some of the harder to find local seeds. So they're a good resource for native seeds. They do only do that exchange like once a year. Other than that, there are a couple suppliers of seeds that I would recommend. Western Native Seed, which is local, they're in Coaldale. They carry a lot of native seeds, not just for the plains, but for the foothills and the mountains. And then I use some of the other ones too, depending on what kind of seeds I'm trying to get. Sometimes Prairie Moon will have some stuff that works here, but for the most part, they focus on like the tall grass prairie where they get a lot more water. Western native seed is usually my go-to, but sometimes they don't have what you're looking for, and you got to kind of look around. As far as nurseries, we have a couple in Pueblo that sometimes have native stuff. I wish they had more. Desert Canyon Farm is a big supplier of natives and low water plants. They do open for the public for a short period. So you can shop. They're out by Canyon City. You can go there and kind of look at their selection. Otherwise, a lot of nurseries carry their stuff. There's also some local places that are kind of smaller. There's Cactus Haven. They carry a lot of the uh, native and exotic cacti that can do well in our colder climate, which is kind of rare. There's not a lot of cacti that can survive that. There's quite a few in Colorado Springs that will carry natives. Sometimes for trees and shrubs and stuff, I have to look at what they have because they don't carry a lot of the native shrubs and stuff in Pueblo. There are some other kind of different options. The Colorado State Forest does a tree sale every year. They stopped doing it for a little while during COVID, but I think they're starting to do it again. And you can get fairly cheap tree stock through them. And then up north in Loveland, they have the High Plains Environmental Center, and they provide some of the harder to find plants. And then whatever I can't find through these places, I do go out and try to find seed and collect it and either broadcast it just to see if it can germinate, or for stuff that's a little bit more difficult, I do some indoor growing and then transplant it out. But yeah, the garden does produce a lot of seed too, so people are welcome to take some seed if there's something they want.
Oh my goodness, Justin, you are singing our song. Maggie, did you happen to hear Justin just offering you to come and grab seed next autumn from their demonstration garden?
Yeah, I've been actually trying to just be quiet, but there were lots of things. Like, for example, let's come and visit your garden for a chapter event. We can do
Mhm.
this like a garden work day. We can just come see it. We can also do the seed collection. March 29th is Western Landscape Symposium.
I will be there. We
Yeah.
are we have a table.
So hopefully we can try to table next to each other. That would be fun.
Yeah,
And
I'll have
then
to look around for you guys.
my question of the week to, excuse me, various municipalities is, pardon me, are you participating in City Nature Challenge? And if
Uh,
so, it'd be cool to do that together.
I don't believe so. You'll have to send me the information on that. I don't know if I've seen that through the. I'm a master gardener, so that's usually where I get a lot of my information. I haven't heard anything through them.
Yeah, it's just like a big community, like observation with iNaturalist type
Oh,
of event.
cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I use iNaturalist a lot for kind of keeping records of where I find stuff if I want to go back and get seed. Um, yeah, you'll have to send me over that information. Um, um, trying to think. I do through the Master Gardeners do some volunteering to one of the big ones is edible landscapes in Pueblo. I usually plan the garden at Mineral Palace, and I've been trying to get some native berry bushes and trees in there. So some perennials that will get bigger over time. Stuff I would probably use in a landscape at home too, like serviceberry, currants, um, choke cherries, raspberry. Um, but yeah, it's trying to get them to grow more perennials because kind of take care of themselves after a little while. Um, yeah, do you have any other questions?
Justin, I'm just curious how else the Colorado Native Plant Society can support you guys in your mission.
Oh, yeah. We do occasionally do some garden cleanup days with the master gardeners. I could definitely let you guys know as well. It's usually like a volunteer come out and help with weeds, or if we have a big project or something, um, where we might need more help, something like that. Um, Other than that, seeds. Always trying to find seeds that are hard to get a hold of.
Seeds. And you know, Maggie, what you were saying about having asking Justin if he would schedule a guided tour of their demonstration garden, that's amazing. I just find it so inspirational. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, Justin.
Thank you. It's not my design. I've inherited it from previous gardeners who did an amazing job as well. But now that it's kind of my thing, I have tried to push it more towards native plants, and a lot of the stuff I try to do is through broadcasting seed and kind of just seeing what likes it there and what thrives. Um, you can go on our website and look at what plants we do have in the garden. This is the overhead. It's about a 3-acre garden. You can see the grass test test area back here where it's in strips by the different kinds of grasses. This is the carport that has a kind of a rain garden right behind it. And then this whole lawn is the buffalo grass and blue grama. It uses very little water. Usually water it 1 to 2 times a week using what do they call them? It's a special kind of garden head or irrigation head, um, like a rotator. I forget the technical term, but they put out a stream of water that's less likely to get picked up by the wind and just a lot less water waste. So it gets about an inch of water a week. It could get less than that. Um, but we do like to keep it green. So for people coming to look. Um, as the area around the building right here is kind of a higher water use area. So you'll find stuff in this area that's more what you would find in like a riparian area or in the mountains. As you move outward, like this area is all drip irrigation. It gets fairly decent amount of water, less than this area, but it's kind of like a middle, gets a medium amount. And then as you get out, like out here around the outer part of the garden, it's low water and very low water or dry. So you get a lot more of the really xeric plants out there. We do have a lot of trees that are natives or semi-native. Um, like catalpas and uh bur oaks and stuff like that that we don't really have in Colorado, but they're native to the general area. Um, I usually don't recommend cottonwood trees, even though they're natives, because they uh, break very easily. You can look over the plants in the garden, and that's a native that usually isn't looked at in the gardening trade, but it wants to grow there, so we let it grow. Um, Kind of goes over some information about how tall they get, what kind of soils they like, what their hardiness is. Um, some native to North America, but not really super native to southeastern Colorado, like bee balm. Um, some non-natives are in here that are just xeric. Um, Usually, if something becomes invasive in the garden, I'll get rid of it. So a lot of the stuff on here, even if it's non-native, there's not a huge risk of it spreading and getting out of your garden. A lot of the xeric plants, they might survive once they're mature here, but they have a tough time germinating in our soil. Um, there are exceptions, like there was mullein in the garden, which I've removed because it's a pretty bad invasive in this area. Um, Stuff like that I keep an eye on and try to educate people with plants that aren't going to ruin the native plants that we already have. But yeah, all that information's there. We have in the garden, there's signs to show people what plants are what. And I'm always there to answer questions, or you can email me if you just have a quick question.
Wow, Justin, I had no idea you had this amazing map of your garden. This is a huge
It's kind of hidden
resource. Thank you.
for sure. Yeah, it's kind of there are also plant lists on the website if you just want to look at a plant list. But I've taken pictures of a lot of the plants in the garden and kind of just trying to get that information out there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we have
Um,
kept you gentlemen a long, long time. Does anybody have any other questions for Chris or Justin?
I have a kind of a fun thing I can show you from the gardens. Um, So I'm gonna take the screen again.
okay. Well, let me stop sharing.
Oh, I took it away already.
Okay, good.
So
Well,
back in when we were coming out of the pandemic, we had a century plant decide to go into full bloom here.
Yeah, I see that.
And we chronicled it. This was before Justin got to the district, but we chronicled it with a bunch of photos. The girls nicknamed it Wedo. So I'm going to take you through some photos of our Sentry plant, which was actually a big attraction because there wasn't much to do right after the pandemic. So a lot of people would just drive up and see it and then drive off. So, but here you,
They are pretty crazy. They get tall.
yeah, here they're measuring it. This was after about 3 weeks after they noticed it was growing, and nobody was out and about at that time. So this is Patty and Margie who work here, and they were the only ones here. So there they are measuring it, and this is kind of the cactus garden. I think
Yeah.
a few weeks later, sunflowers overtook this whole area. So it was
Yeah. I've tried to get those out of that area, but
So here they are measuring it, and we're going to go through its whole life cycle here. So it
yeah.
was 11 foot, 115 inches at this point, and still growing on this kind of backs up, and it just kept growing and growing.
Yeah, there it goes.
It got that big. And there it was at 142 inches, and here's a young couple just loving it, and
Yeah, those are really cool.
yeah, it was really fun to watch, and then of course
There it goes. It's blooming.
it was blooming, and then it fell over in the wind one day, and so Stephanie and I went out and looked at it, and it was kind of sad there, but
Yeah.
some of the other employees decided to appropriately tie it to the handicap parking sign
It's funny. I haven't seen these.
until it finally died. So
Yeah.
that was our adventure with Wedo.
That was probably the last time it bloomed. There hasn't been one that's bloomed since then.
No, and I think they're called Sentry plants because it's not a century, but
Yeah, it's over.
it's
Yeah.
once in a lifetime type of deal, you know.
Yeah, it's like 10, 15 years, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was our wonderful Wedo
Yeah.
that we had.
It is cool.
I thought it was funny when they tried to keep it propped up there. So
Yeah.
anyway,
It's
just a little fun thing to end the whole thing with there.
yeah.
Well,
Those aren't native to our area, but
no, they're
I
not.
do love an agave.